Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eric Paxton. Today is August the 8th of 2025. This is the final assignment, week 5 for FTH 202, the revolver portion of the handgun specialist class. And we'll be using this, the Taurus 856, which you can go ahead and see that the chambers are completely empty. The barrel also itself is empty. There is no ammunition in the feed source, no ammunition in the firearm in general, and no ammunition in the workspace. For part 1, it says to use the revolver as a demonstration piece to show and describe all the areas in your revolver that are particularly of interest when inspecting the health of the firearm, and explain why these areas are of particular concern. Well, one for me would be the cylinder stop. If that's not working, if it's broken, it's damaged, and it's not letting the cylinder lock up like it should, you run the risk of the firing pin striking the side of the cylinder on one of these little spaces in between right here, or the rim of the projectile, and causing damage to the chamber that projectile sets in. Another one would be the connection between your trigger and your hammer. If that connection is damaged, it's not going to cock the hammer, or the hammer might not stay cocked. It might fall before you're ready to discharge the round. Also, I'm going to be looking at the crown of the muzzle. I would be looking at also the rifling in the barrel itself and the bore of the firearm to see if there's any pitting, rust damage, or anything of that nature. Those are some things that I would definitely be looking for. Your like you said, your hammer to trigger sear engagement, things like that. Also, the ejector for the spent ammunition. If that's not working and they've expanded too far and you can't get them out, that could be a problem. As for part 2, it said to identify 10 different learning experiences that you've had throughout this course and articulate why those were learning experiences for you and how you plan to strengthen those points in the future. For me, there's a lot of different things. It's really hard to narrow it down to 10 exactly, but I would start off with the learning the inner workings of the of the revolver itself, and how the trigger and the hammer interact with each other, how the transfer bar is connected, and the hand, how that works. Also learning how where the positioning of the springs were inside of the firearm that produced the tension against the hammer or the trigger itself. Finding out that this particular screw right here has a piece that's under spring tension underneath of it that holds the cylinder and this little rod right here, the ejector rod, in place. Keeps them from just popping out when you open the firearm. And also the interaction that the hand has with the back of the firearm or the cylinder, how that works. That as you're pulling the trigger, it's pushing up to rotate that next round into place, and that the positioning of that hand is what determines whether the cylinder is going to rotate to the left or rotate to the right. And another learning experience I had was that not all revolvers are like this one. That some of them, like the Chiappa Rhino, the barrel is underneath on the bottom chamber and not the top chamber. That was something that I found that was really just kind of a one-of-a-kind type thing, and I thought was very unique, very interesting. The different types of revolvers and what they can handle, like this one being a .38 Special. You can not do 357 Magnum in it. But if this particular revolver were a 357 Magnum, you could in fact run 38 Special in it. But being that this one is a 38 Special only, it would be a very horribly bad idea to try to run 357 Magnum in it, because one, they're too long, and two, the chamber pressure would probably be in excess of what this particular firearm is rated to handle. Stuff like that, you know, just different nuances between the different types of revolvers, styles throughout the years. Like some of them that had the top break, some of them that had no top strap whatsoever, some of them that were completely encased and the only way to unload it was to pull the rod that held the cylinder in place out and drop the cylinder out, that there was no other way to unload it. And then the advancement of the swinging door that was on this side back here that would flip open, and the ejector rod being offset to the side, you could load and unload each individual chamber one at a time. Granted, it did take the time to make it a little bit slower because the cylinder didn't swing out and you could load all 5 or 6 at one time, like these do, where you can just push this button, fling the cylinder out, and you can, with a speed loader, load all 6 shots in one shot. Those are some of the things that I found to be, you know, quite interesting. And for part 3, it says, discuss what you feel are unique features that are found in the double action revolver platform, like the one that we received, which is this one here, as part of this course, and articulate how those features have developed over time and what they do for the ultimate performance of the firearm. I think it's kind of neat that you know, the trigger and the hammer are pretty much linked together in unison with each other. It's like when I move the hammer, the trigger moves, and vice versa. When I move the trigger, the hammer will in fact move. And you know, I like how all those pieces just work well in concert with each other. The timing is just absolutely flawless. You know, back in the day, it was pretty much single action for the most part. You know, they didn't have a lot of double action options, and then that became a thing later on, you know, to make it faster to fire and stuff like that. That it kind of didn't start out that way. You know, pistols started out with flintlock and, you know, all the percussion cap, and then went to the revolvers, which had started out black powder with percussion caps, and then went to a metallic cartridge, and then advanced from there. It was just very, you know, it's really kind of hard to pin down exactly one unique feature that makes it, you know, a just individual deal altogether. It has so many different features that kind of play into it, that make it in and of itself, the double single action revolver, to be kind of unique in its own right. You know, not many of the older ones had that ability. And you know, I just like that when you cock the hammer, it stays locked up, but when you pull the trigger, I'm going to show it's empty again just to be, you know, safe. But when you pull the trigger and it reaches the rear, it doesn't lock up. That is kind of one of the things that I believe is very unique in the double action firearm itself. Is that, you know, while the striker fire doesn't have the hammer, external hammer, it doesn't possess that ability. The hammer fired, you know, semi-automatics do, but this just in and of itself is just a a beautiful masterpiece that I never really would have thought of like that beforehand until actually getting to sit down and take it apart. But that's all I have for this one, and thank you guys for tuning in, and we are glad to have been part of this FTH 202 revolver class, and I look forward to learning more about it. You guys have a good day.